This is John for MTG Nexus coming at you with some Izzet Prowess in Modern. As a friendly reminder, if you like Modern content, especially the Lightning Bolt based variety, please consider subscribing to the channel, as we aim to be the most informative Modern channel on YouTube. So, a little bit ways back, we messed around with this deck. This was an attempt to use Sprite Dragon and Prowess creatures in kind of a red-ish Prowess shell, based mainly around using Wizard's Lightning, Lightning Bolt, and Snapcaster Mage, similar to a deck Jeff Hoogland had messed with a while ago. The deck was okay. I mean, it wasn't amazing or anything. You know, maybe we were a little bit too heavy on the counter spells, but we were playing Delver of Secrets. You know, we had Opt. You know, deck was fine. We never really revisited it. Things kind of got busy with the Incinerator Burn and the Companions and whatnot. However, an actual Izzet Blitz deck has shown up, built around the card Stormwing Entity. Now, this is a rare from M21 that's 3 and 2 blue. However, much like Shauner's Incinerator, it has a reduced cost associated with it. If you cast a spell this turn, it was an instant or sorcery, it costs 2 and a blue less, so you can cast it for 1 and a blue. And what this deck is trying to do is trying to be an amalgamation of the Prowess creatures and Stormwing Entity. To that end, you're playing a lot of the Phyrexian spells. Obviously, Gitaxian Probe is banned, otherwise this deck would have that an auto include. But you are playing Surgical Extraction, Gut Shot, and often underutilized Mutagenic Growth to be able to play Stormwing Entity on too, should you happen to have it. And also as another enabler, you have Manamorphose, card that was most prominently used in Storm and Izzet Phoenix over the years. It's a free spell that you could use to fix your mana to cast a Stormwing Entity on turn 2. So once again, this deck has 6, 8, 12 ways of casting Storm Entity on turn 2, not including, you know, Lava Darts, Crash Throughs, Lightning Bolts to cast it on turn 3. And also, in addition to being a 3/3 flyer, which is extremely powerful, as one of the ways the Prowess deck can get bogged down is the board gets bogged down and you can't find a crash through to end the game. Also happens to Scry 2, which is extremely valuable when you're a deck that wants to draw all gas or find another threat, should your threats get answered. Beyond that, you're running the usual Soulscar Mage and Monastery Swift Spear. You're also running things like Crash Through as a way to not only cycle through your deck, trigger Prowess a bunch, but also as a way to allow your creatures to trample over a bunch of jump blockers. And then Manamorphose and Light Up a Stage kind of round out your ability to cycle through your deck, see a bunch of spells, and then obviously 2 copies of Bedlam Reveler here at the top end. Mono Red Prowess has kind of been in a bit of flux lately. Obviously, when Lurrus was around, you saw the Lurrus builds, which were like Swift Spear, Soulscar Mage, Abbot, and sometimes Kiln Fiend, sometimes Steamkin. The red decks have gone back to the old versions with like Bedlam Reveler and either Steamkin or Kiln Fiend as the additional threats. So, Stormwing Entity kind of fits in quite nicely with this, although, you know, obviously you are making your mana considerably worse by having to play blue sources with 4 Spire Bluff Canal, 2 Fiery Islet, and 2 copies of Steam Vents. Islet's not really much of a sacrifice, as the deck was already wanting to play some number of canned lands, but, you know, you are taking a little bit more damage from your land base, and you're taking a lot more damage from your spells, because this version has a lot more Phyrexian spells. Mutagenic Growth in particular can also help protect your creatures. Surgical Extraction, well, not great in the main deck as it was back in the day when Izzet Phoenix was a thing and Dredge was more popular. You know, just the ability to glean information from your opponent's deck, you know, being able to see what their game 1 configuration is, even should you happen to be boarding the Surgicals out in certain matchups. You know, that's something that can come up. You know, being aware of, like, if your opponent's on like some type of rogue strategy, what cards are in the deck, etc. Sideboard, additional 2 copies of Surgical Extraction. There are certain matches where obviously Gut Shot's not particularly good, and you might want more graveyard hate, be it against Snow, be it against some type of combo deck, be it against some type of actual graveyard deck like Dredge, Storm, etc. 2 copies of Assault Probe. Strobe, this is kind of this card deck's Teamer Battle Rage, except obviously, you know, it doesn't have the trample part. You already have that kind of covered with Crash Through, and sometimes you're just trying to race your opponent, you know, be it like Tron trying to set up, etc. And sometimes it's just nice to have that double strike. Ether Gust, pretty nice thing to have access to. Can tag a lot of important spells in the format. You know, it's pretty good against Burn, pretty good against Prowess, very good against Gruul. Can come in against some numbers against Snow because it can tag both Ice Fang and Uro. Abrade, this is kind of your shatter effect for Chalice things while also being a removal spell. Dragon's Claw for the red mirrors. Mystical Dispute, primarily targeting the Snow decks. Blood Moon, you can only really play it as a one-of because you are playing a blue splash, so, but sometimes it's nice to get Eldrazi Tron or whatever. And Kozilek's Return, really not going to kill any of your creatures, can sweep some opponents' boards. Pretty good against Gobos, decent against Burn and such, so pretty nice card to have, you know, against Devoted Druid, etc., etc. Once again, literally kills none of your creatures because there's a Prowess trigger, and you know your creatures will be 2/3s, and you know, it's just nice to have a sweeper in some spots. And also, forgot about this fact, is a way to kill Core Firewalker in a deck with no other way to kill it. So, anyways, this is going to be a replay format as I played this league a couple days back, and we're going to be doing a replay format because I forgot. Well, it wasn't that I couldn't record, it's just I wasn't really in the mood to record at that point in time. Just wanted to kind of learn the deck, play things through, and see how it went. See how the league went. Back for match number 1, we are on the play here. Take a look at this opener, no creatures, so it's a mulligan. This hand's pretty decent. I mean, it's not exciting. We're going to run out of gas quickly if we don't find any other ways to get through our deck. So one of the downsides of the Prowess deck is you can burn through your gas pretty quickly. This hand is pretty clearly a keep. And we put back one of the mountains. Doing that because we want to be able to fetch a blue source should we happen to find Stormwing Entity. So, and we're up against Tron. So I fetch, kind of thin the deck a little bit, crash through, find another land, which is exactly what we wanted. I go ahead and keep the gut shots, both to be able to trigger Stormwind Entity in case we find another Prowess threat. And it's not like our opponent's going to be able to get things into play too quickly here. So I got shot, looking for some damage here. Cast Stormwing Entity once again, holding on to the gut shot. Scry to the bottom, one of which was a surgical extraction, which might have been incorrect here, but opponent's got a walking ballista. We go ahead and gut shot the ballista out of the way. Getting for 6 here, put them to 4. Cast the Soul Scar Mage, and our opponent taps and casts the worst case scenario, which is Eugene the Spirit Dragon. Goes and gets a Worm Coil Engine, wipes away our board. Now we have to beat them from here, which obviously Bolt makes that moderately possible, but and there's a Worm Coil Engine. Bolt their face, play the Bedlam Reveler. They're at 1, no blocks, they Eugene us, and then they play another Worm Coil Engine. And at that point, you know, it's kind of hard to draw 7 points of burn out of this deck, so. Anywho, on sideboarding and game number 2. We're back here for sideboarding for game number 2. We are boarding out 2 copies of Surgical Extraction, nothing really to target in Tron, especially without any type of Field of Ruin or Ghost Quarter effects. 1 copy of Bedlam Reveler, they could be bringing in relics to attack the Bedlam Reveler end of the deck. Board in a Blood Moon. It's Tron. I mean, there is some downside with still having Stormwing Entity in our card. We can cast Stormwing on 2 potentially. We also have the ability of Manamorphose to cast it. We brought in 1 copy of Abrade. Sometimes it's nice to shatter a Worm Coil Engine for a turn, or whatever card they're going to get with their Karn the Great Creator, should that be in their deck. Also being able to tag a map while we're on the play. Finally, we brought in 2 copies of Assault Strobe, once again, increasing the clock as much as possible. Just get Tron dead. So we are operating with 61 cards. Not ideal, but, you know, we're on the play. This hand is pretty reasonable overall. Soulscar Mage on 1, Stormwing Entity somewhere down the line, should we be able to cast it. Opponent is on 7, so we have to try to be a Tron 7, which is not always easy. We draw another Crash Through. I cast 1 Crash Through here, using the Lava Dart to increase the damage, as we do have the ability to play Stormwing Entity next turn off of a Crash Through. And our opponent kept 7, but kept an Forest Draw. Seems a little bit dubious here. Once again, casting Lava Dart. Just doing the thing with Soulscar Mage here, playing Stormwing Entity, scrying and seeing a land, putting down on the bottom, Metamorphose putting down on top. And then obviously we're set up for the turn 3 kill here, so, you know. One card to consider in this situation is Weather the Storm, and given the fact of what our opponent kept, it's very likely they had it, hence the reason I don't go all in here. It's a card that was on my radar because it was very likely they had it, and sure enough, there's Weather the Storm. I'll cast that, and now we can just go for the kill this turn. So I was thinking it was kind of bizarre in my head that Tron kept a wow. The Tron had kept a 7-card hand without Tron on 3. And it turns out they had Tron with Sylvan Scrying lined up, but they wanted to hold up Weather the Storm. So it's a good thing I didn't go all in. This turn, obviously, we cast the Swift Spear, cast a couple of Crash Throughs, you know, cast another Lightning Bolt, just really, really get them dead. So 4, 10, 14 damage. We win through a Weather the Storm. Weather the Storm is an effective hate card against these red decks, although it's far more effective against Burn if they don't happen to have Skullcrack. Prowess with a bunch of creatures in play can sometimes just overpower Weather the Storm, so I think it's a maybe overrated hate card a little bit, but here you got to see, you know, Prowess just kind of goldfishing through, what, almost 30-some points of life very easily. So, anyways, on to game number 3. After game number 3, we're on the draw. No lander, so we gotta ship it. This hand's got the 3-lander with a Soulscar Mage. Put back one of the lands. Put back one of the fetch lands since we're going to want Steam Vents anyway. Is on a 5-card hand this game. So they're being a little bit more selective how they do it. Leading on Spirebluff Canal here, simply because... So once again, kind of mindful of Weather the Storm, which is certainly a card that could be on the radar. Hence why I don't go all in here. And we could always draw another... hit a Spatial Contortion here. And poor opponent's about to get blown out by Mutagenic Growth. Just kind of decided to go all in here, or at least somewhat. Holding the gut shots once again. Kind of hoping at some point that we'll find a another threat. Blood Moon off the top is kind of nice. Continue to plunk away. I decided to kind of go on here, which may or may not have been correct. Put them to 4. Cast an Oblivion Stone. Okay, the Stormwing Entity we can't cast. That does the map thing. They do the Nature's Claim thing. They do the Weather the Storm thing. And I completely missed a turn there where I had a chance to cast a Metamorphose into a Stormwing Entity. Or did... No, I guess I didn't with O-Stone already in play, so... But our opponent does not feel obligated to blow the O-Stone. So I attack with Soul Scar Mage, play out the other Soul Scar Mage, trying to bait them into blowing the Ozstone. They finally do. They continue to do the thing. So, like, we're in bad shape here, right? They're at 9, we have a Stormwing Entity and a Bolt. But, you know, anything off the top, they basically get to double up on, whether it be Karn or Walking Ballista or Ulamog, any of those things they get to double up on with a Sanctum of Ugin. So we're kind of at the point where we hope they brick. The Stormwing Entity thing here. Scry into a land and Assault Strobe. We keep the Assault Strobe on top. But still with nothing. They Sylvan Scry into a land here. Play the Assault Strobe. Bolt their face. And guess what? That's another Weather the Storm. So they go to 15. We hit them for 10. Opponent draws a map. Cracks the map. We have a Swift Spear. Hit them for 4. Opponent cracks their Field of Ruin. We grab a thing. Play another Sylvan Scrying and concede. So, a couple of things happen here. Like, obviously they had multiple copies of Weather the Storm, or Weather the Storm this game. We got lucky that they flooded out. But, you know, we did power through once again, another 30-some points of damage we had to do. And I'm still not 100% sure with that triple gut shot Soul Scar Mage in play, if that was correct to put them to 4. But, you know, what are you going to do, really? You know, you need to get them dead at some point, because at some point they're going to top deck a Worm Coil, or they're going to top deck a Karn, or an Ulamog, and you just need to put them dead, as close to dead as possible, and hope you top deck there. Obviously, Stormwing Entity, pretty nice with that Scry ability, funding the Assault Strobe, you know, bottoming another land. You know, this card, on its surface, a 3/3 Prowess for 2 mana, with flying, very, very nice. Gotta jump through a little bit of hoops to get there. But that Scry, too, can be really clutch in a deck with 18 lands, not really wanting to draw any more lands once you hit, like, land drop 3 or 4. So, yeah. Anyways, nice win there against Tron in a bit of an unorthodox fashion. So, on to match number 2. Back for match number 2, we are on the play. 2-lander and a threat. Seems like a keep to me. Once again, maybe I'm not supposed to reveal the blue early on, but you know, I do want to be set up to do things as quickly as possible. I don't lead on any of our threats here. It's possible I'm actually supposed to not lead on this fetch land. Because our opponent just played a silent clearing, and it's quite likely they have removal here. I do play it anyway. Play the Light Up the Stage, which was triggered off of the silent clearing being tapped. So we are punished for playing the fetch land here a little bit. Play out get the Soul Scar Mage into play. It goes turn 2, Tide Hollow Sculler. Takes our Light Up, or our Lava Dart. Lava Dart, get rid of it, get our Lava Dart back, Lava Dart them again. Play Crash Through. Put them to 8. They path. We gut shot them. We Stormwing Entity them. See a Bolt and a Crash Through. Leave those on top. Opponent goes Stoneforge Mystic. And then we play Crash Through. We bolt their face and kill them. So, you know, sequencing errors there. Definitely with playing the land before Light the Stage, because if they were going to remove our Monastery Swift Spear, they were going to have to use a removal spell that caused them damage. So, you know, definitely need to watch your sequencing with Prowess on things like that. So, something to point out for my own benefit as well as your guys's. Once again, this is my first time playing this particular build of the archetype, so, but still something with Light Up the Stage you got to keep in mind. Anyways, on the sideboarding for game number 2. We are back for sideboarding for game number 2. So we boarded out 2 copies of Surgical Extraction, 1 copy of Bedlam Reveler. Obviously, once again, this isn't really a Surgical Extraction matchup. 1 copy of Bedlam Reveler, because you never know if your opponent's going to bring in, like, Rest in Peace or whatever, especially out of a mono or a white base deck. Brought in the 2 copies of Abrade. We saw the Stoneforge Mystics. We also saw Tidal Scholar, which is an artifact that can get shattered even if it were to get pumped up somehow. We also brought in 1 copy of Blood Moon, because it did look like our opponent was a little bit vulnerable to that card with the mana base they showed us in game number 1. And then we also brought in 1 of our 2 copies of Kozilek's Return, because it does look like quite a bit of their deck is a little bit weak to that card. So, once again, operating with 61 cards, not ideal, but this is the world we operate in. Hand's pretty reasonable. Obviously, we only have 1 threat, which is kind of vulnerable to removal, but, you know, mutagenic growth, a bunch of other stuff. You know, maybe we're supposed to remove the mutagenic growth in this matchup. Again, opponent shows us a Relic Progenitus, so which is pretty good against Lava Dart, really only in our deck at this point. Opponent goes Stoneforge Mystic, getting Batter Skull. We kind of figured was in their deck anyway. Opponent very quick to do the thing. We do Crash through here because we don't really particularly care about things and stuff. It's possible here that I'm was supposed to have gone more in on Swift Spear with mutagenic growth that turn, because we don't know like if our opponent's gonna turn around, play a removal spell this turn. Lead on Crash through. See the Blood Moon, which is kind of unfortunate, and then I made a minor mistake somewhere in here at some point. Once again, we kind of went all in here, put them to 3. Opponent cracks the Relic. I should maybe have considered exiling the Lava Dart, but I guess when we're on 3 lands there, I didn't really want to lose out my 3rd land draw for Blood Moon. So they are at 2 here, and for shadowing, that might come back to bite us. We'll see. But play Blood Moon this turn. Opponent untaps. Plays Batter Skull. And then we draw Lava Dart. Put them to 2, needing to draw something, and play Soulscar Mage. And then our opponent just does the stuff, and at this point there's no one top deck that can deal 5 damage, and each turn cycle they're adding 4 damage, so I go ahead and scoop it up. But once again, if I would have Lava Darted instead of prioritizing Blood Moon, we would have been able to win this game. Hindsight's 20/20. Maybe it's still correct to just Lava Dart there. I don't know. What do you think down in the comments? Should I have flashback the Lava Dart, knowing I might not be able to cast a Blood Moon next turn, or is Blood Moon kind of the priority, and we didn't really... You know, we knew about the Batter Skull too, so maybe that should have been a consideration. You know, we knew they had, once they hit their 5th land drop, the Batter Skull was coming down, regardless of how much Blood Moon was color screwing them with their other spells. So, anyways, on to game number 3. So, after seeing the Relic in game number 3, we board out the other Bedlam Reveler, and board in a Kozilek's Return here. On the play here, which is nice. Hand's a little awkward, maybe. We have double Stormwing Entity and 1 copy of Manamorphose. I still decided to keep this hand, I think, as it's an interesting threat on turn 2 here. Just play that tapped. There you go. Inquisition on 1, leaving us stranded with a hand of stuff. Play Crash through, draw Lightning Bolt, pass turn. Play Stoneforge Mystic. Getting Batter Skull, of course. go ahead and grab a Mountain Bolt, the Stoneforge Mystic, see Lightning Bolt, and Metamorphose. I do believe we keep both on top with Metamorphose, the topmost card. When it untaps and passes us, I decline to fetch. Opponent with a copy of Dark Confidant. I Lava Dart it. I play another Stormwing Entity, keeping Lightning Bolt on top. Opponent Kaya's Guiles us. Okay. Metamorphose. Finding that. And a Stormwing Entity here. Fortunately, they have Lingering Souls, so we're not going to be able to guarantee damage here. Lose our Swift Spear, play the Soulscar Mage, not able to cast the Stormwing Entity, feeling really bad. And then at the Duress, I just kind of scoop here because they're at 12. They have a Lingering Souls, a Shambling Vent, etc., etc. So, losing out to Stoneforge Mystic here. Stoneforge Mystic dot pile feels kind of bad, but you know, when you're facing down Path to Exile, Kaya's Guile, you know, it's one of the things I talked about also with Incinerator. Is Stormwing Entity is a card, by the nature of its casting cost, by the nature of its prowess ability with a lot of the free spells we play. You know, it's pretty much immune to Bolt. It's pretty much immune to... It's obviously immune to Fatal Push. You know, Abrupt Decay doesn't hit it. Dismember even is questionable whether it can kill it sometimes. You know, you really gotta have a limited selection of spells that can kill it. You know, Path Exile, Kaya's Guile, Liliana, Edict Effects, etc. You know, and I really think the effectiveness of that card both depends on how effective a 3/3 flyer is in the format, and also how effective, you know, your opponent's removal is against the card. Like, there's a lot of spots where, you know, decks like Jund, okay, so they have 3 Fatal Push, 3 Lightning Bolt, and maybe 2 Terminate or 2 Assassin's Trophy, as an example. So they maybe have 2 removal spells in their deck besides Liliana Edicts that can kill it. Makes the threat a lot better than a Soulscar Mage or Monastery Swift Spear that died to basically every removal spell in the game. So it's really the value of Stormwing Entity here, and obviously you saw the awkwardness of, you know, Stormwing Entity reliance on with discard spells. So, you know, much like Incinerator, there are some downsides to playing the card besides the mana base. So, anyways, let's get into match number 3. We are back for match number 3. Just warning you, this isn't going to be a particularly long one. We are on the draw here. 1, 2, 3, 4 lands. Gotta ship it. 3 lands here with a Soulscar Mage. I'll lay up the stage, crash through, etc. Hand's pretty acceptable. Put back the land. When it goes Urborg. Never a good sign to see Urborg on one. Inquisition. Takes light up the stage. Okay. It's our value card. Makes sense. Turn 2. Smallpox. Play out Soulscar Mage. Pass the turn. Plays an Inquisition. They do the rack. We try to do things. We bolt their face. And at this point, it may seem stupid to concede, but here's the thing. Could we have won this match potentially? Sure. You know, we're putting our opponent to 12 here, but they get to untap and put us to 11. They still have a card in hand, etc. Maybe we win this top deck war from here. The problem is, in general, the Smallpox, Liliana of the Veil, deny your resources kind of deck is very bad for a deck like Prowess. That with Burn has a very rough Smallpox matchup if they can find a clock. You know, they deny you resources of lands, deny you resources of cards, etc. put you on a relatively 2 or 3 or 4 turn clock with the Rack and Shrieking Affliction, as well as I believe some of these versions have also been playing Davriel. And then, you know, we can put our opponent to 12 here once again, as I was saying. But it's not a fun matchup to play against from the burn side, and it's even worse from the prowess side. Because the advantage of prowess is that the creatures can do a lot more damage. They have to do a lot more damage because you're not as much burn focused. You know, so you're more reliant on your creatures to deal burst damage rather than burns a much more consistent flow of damage other than Swiftspear itself. So, reason I conceded this match, it's just not fun. It's just not a good matchup. And at the end of the day, I'm here to have fun as much as to inform you guys and have fun. I could slog through this match, but it just wasn't worth it. So, on to match number 4. We're back for match number 4. We're on the draw. 1 lander. Don't think this hand's a keep. Well, Soulscar and Bolt. Maybe it was a keep. I don't honestly remember. Oh, it kept it. Okay. Put leads on Mountain into Swiftspear. So at this point, we could be against Burn or Prowess. Excuse me. Just decide to bolt their guy in case they are Prowess. Looks like they are. They bolt our guy. We Mutagenic Growth to save it. Put Lava Darts it. Oopsie. They got shot. So our opponent 3 for 2s us. Or 2 for 3s us. Seems good. Put the Swiftspear. Forgot to attack there. Which could be relevant. Crash through. Plays a Soulscar Mage of their own. We bolt it. Opponent flooding on lands. Plays Stormwing Entity. Go ahead and Metamorphose. Play our own Stormwing Entity. At this point, we were looking for lands more than anything. Lay up the stage. They threaten here. We can't really block effectively. A Stormwing Entity themselves, scry some cards. Here you're seeing the effectiveness of Stormwing Entity, it being a hard to remove threat. We Anamorphose into a Swiftspear. Got shot to the face, I believe. Trying to somehow come up with enough damage to kill them here doesn't seem very likely. Lay up the stage. Revealing a Mutagenic Growth and a Stormwing Entity of our own. Go to combat, swing in. They block. Do the thing. And then our opponent untaps and just swings and kills us with the Mutagenic Growth. So, once again, we missed a point of damage or 2 by not swinging that one Swiftspear. But in the end, Stormwing, end of this game's discussion, Stormwing Entity, pretty good in the Prowess or Red Mirrors where it's difficult to kill, especially, but when backed by Mutagenic Growths. So one thing I will notice about this sideboarding is I didn't bring in the Dragon's Claws, and that certainly feels like a mistake, but at the same time, like, what do we board out for? We boarded out the 2 surgical extractions for the 2 copies of a Braid, but at what would we board out for Dragon's Claws? Some gut shots, some lava darts. You know, they're all reasonable cards in the matchup. Again, we already did board out 2 gut shots. Question is for what, though? 2 copies of a Braid and 2 copies of... Oh, Ether Gust. You know, it's really hard to fit in Dragon's Claw when you already have 4 cards you already want. Maybe we're supposed to board in the Dragon's Claws, regardless of making Stormwing Entity a little bit worse. This hand, okay. Got a couple Lava Darts. We have no Braid for their first threat. So I think we end up keeping this hand. Just kind of leaning on the foothills here. Take Power 1 and like it. Switch up his steam vents. Gonna braid their guy, which obviously could have gotten blown out by mutagenic growth potentially. With a crash through. Drop Metamorphose off the top like a professional. Scry land to the top here. Yeah, braid our guy. Crash through. Play another Stormwing Entity. Presumably leaving the Swift Spear on top. Yeah, we got another bolt. Like I said, it can be difficult to deal with, but not all the time. No reason to go in on spells here. Just kind of hold back our spells to protect our Swift Spear. Put it with double thing into a Stormwing Entity. Which is fine. Another Bedlam Reveler, perfect card to draw. Just start to unload at this point. They mutagenic growth. We Ether Gust the mutagenic growth to the top. Kill their Stormwing Entity. Get a bunch of cards in the graveyard. They Lutz. They Lava Dart. They Lava Dart to kill our dude. We untap. Cast a Swift Spear. Cast a Lava Spike. Get in for some damage. They play Dragon's Claw. Sure. Kind of annoying card. We got shot. Play Bedlam Reveler. Play a land. Play another Swift Spear. Start getting in for damage. This looks like a regular Mono Red Prowess thing. Anytime I play Burn, they play Bedlam Reveler. Which is fine, but unfortunately, when you're the second Bedlam Reveler to the party, and your opponent's already got a chance to refill, then, you know, kind of a Mono Red Prowess thing there. It's kind of whoever Jace's seconds behind the 8-ball, too. You know, but, you know, Stormwing Entity, I was just commenting about how hard it can be to remove, and then if you don't have a free spell in your hand or mana up, it's kind of hard to protect it. And, you know, really, it's kind of funny that only Bolt and a Braid are semi-reasonable removal spells in the matchup. Otherwise, you're like 2 or 3 for 1ing yourself to kill things with like Gut Shots and Lava Darts and sacking Lava Dart Mountains, and yeah. So, that's the one thing. I will always comment, why play Prowess over Burn or why play Burn over Prowess. Prowess, you deal more damage with your creatures because everything has Prowess. Burn, you deal a consistent amount of damage with your creatures with Goblin Guide and Eidolon, and your Swift Spears can be a little bit better or worse, but you deal more damage with spells. You're attacking on more multiple angles, whereas with Prowess, if you can answer their creatures, you're generally pretty good because they're going to have a hard time burning you out from 20 or 18 or even 16. But, you know, if their creatures stick on board for more than a turn, you're in a lot of trouble. So, anyways, on to the third game. We got Sideboarding. Once again, I didn't bring in the Dragon's Claws. Maybe that's incorrect. This hand's a little bit on the loose side. Like, 3 lands isn't ideal. We don't have an additional threat. We don't have any cantrips other than Crash Through, but I still think it's a keep with Swift Spear and plays. And we're also vulnerable to the fact that we don't have a removal spell here. So, use Mutagenic Growth to protect the thing here. They play Dragon's Claw, sure. Metamorphose. We're really looking for a Stormwing Entity there, and then I find it off the Crash Through, which is kind of awkward, but opponent Lava Darting our face, just to gain some life apparently. Go ahead and cast Lava Dart. Once again, kind of saving our things here for the Stormwing Entity. Scrying a couple lands to the bottom here. Opponent does the lay up the stage thing, and then they have a couple Swift Spears coming down next turn. I think I did the math, and I don't think we can quite kill this turn, so I just settle for Lava Dart and hold up Bolt. Put them to 9. They do the Swift Spear thing, gain some life. They do the Swift Spear thing, gain some life. They Lava Dart. At this point, I have to consider whether I want to bolt them or not. Bolt the creatures, because once these Prowess triggers resolve, I guess we could theoretically kill a creature with Bolt and Lava Dart, but I'm doing the math here. It didn't seem likely they'd be able to kill us even with Assault Strobe, so I just let this go. Opponent got shunning us, and they swing, putting us 2/2. And we untap and bolt their face. Lava Dart them. I have to Ether Gust here because we don't have quite enough damage to get across the finish line. Or I guess we already did. I don't know. No, we didn't actually have enough damage to get across the finish line because of the Dragon's Claw. So, everybody had a slightly different take on the mirror. Like, obviously they brought in Dragon's Claw and Assault Strobe. We brought in Abrades and Ether Gusts. We don't even know if they had Ether Gusts in their sideboard or not. The number on that card's kind of varied. So, this matchup was a lot of fun just in terms of the power going on. And that's another thing with Dragon's Claw, is like Dragon's Claw is really good against the Burn Mirror, but in the Prowess Mirror, if you have creatures that stick in play, once again, you can overpower a lot more life gain than Burn. And, you know, that's the difference between Burn and Prowess. Prowess is far more susceptible to removal spells and an attrition game plan, hence why they have something like Bedlam Reveler or Abbot of Carol Keep in their deck a lot of the times. Burn is a lot less vulnerable to removal, but it's far more vulnerable to life gain in terms of, like, if the life gain resolves, you know, no skull cracks or anything. You know, Weather the Storm and Dragon's Claw are far more effective a hate card against Burn than they are against Prowess. So, anyways, on to the 5th and final match in this set. Back here for match number 5, we're on the play, which is nice. If I remember correctly, this one is a weird one. Mulligan the first hand, no lander. This hand's fine. We put back Surgical Extraction. Maybe it was supposed to be Bedlam Reveler, just because you really don't want to draw a Reveler until the mid-game. Up against the Sultai Triome here. So I fetched, we Morphos. In response, we get Archive Trapped. Okay. Surgical Extraction taking light at the stage. Sure. So let's go red and play Bedlam Reveler. Number 15 here. So not terribly often you get to play a turn 2 Bedlam Reveler. And in response to our Surgical Extraction, our opponent Surgical Extracts us. I flash back the Lava Dart. And then our opponent concedes. So, cast Surgical Extraction on Lava Dart. We flash it back. And proceed to go to town on their life total. Would this have been lethal here? Because we play the Swift Spear, do this, Prowess, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then another Lava Dart hanging out down there. Yeah, that would have been lethal on turn 3, aided by our opponent milling us into being able to cast our Bedlam Reveler. Anyways, on to game number 2. Back for sideboarding in game number 2. Boarding out the 2 Surgical Extractions, not particularly relevant against mill. You can get lucky and steal one of their mill spells if they've already cast one. 2 copies of Bedlam Reveler. Might seem a bit weird here, but a lot of times mill is going to have some type of graveyard hate, whether it be Leyline, whether it be additional copies of Surgical Extraction, whether it be Crypt Incursion. Really don't want to be relying too much on your graveyard against mill in the post-board games. We brought in 2 copies of Assault Strobe. Once again, it's kind of a racing situation. You know, they are going to have removal spells, especially showing us the Sultai land, but bring in the 2 copies of Assault Strobe, bring in Blood Moon and 2 Mystical Disputes, I believe. No, brought in 1 Mystical Dispute and a Blood Moon. So, because Mystical Dispute isn't going to hit everything in their deck, but it's going to hit some key spells like Glimpse the Unthinkable. No lander, or no creature hand, we got to throw this back. Once again, doesn't have a threat either, so I think we throw this one back. And I kept this hand. Maybe because of the creature, or the got shot in the light up the stage here, maybe. Play that. And we get met by a Spell Pierce. Okay. Which is fine-ish. I mean, we have Stormwing Entity here that we get to play. Get to line up another Stormwing Entity next turn. Glimpse the Unthinkable, sure. Play a land. Play Metamorphose. Might have actually just been correct, strictly correct to play Crash through here. And then swing for 4. And do you have a Cryptic Command? Go all in here, and our opponent plays a Trophy, which is mildly annoying. They go Visions of Beyond, and then we flash back a bunch of Lava Darts and kill them anyway. GG easy. Anyways, on to the wrap. We are back with the wrap-up with Blue Red Prowess, or just really Mono Red Prowess with Stormwing Entity tacked on. Stormwing gotta jump through some hoops, but much like Chandra's Incinerator and Burn, really feels like those hoops are worth jumping through. Lots of sequencing mistakes. I'm not going to make excuses for that, other than it's been a while since I played Prowess. At least Prowess consistently. So, we'll definitely be revisiting this deck at some point. The deck feels powerful enough, although it did feel like it was skidding by. The initial playthrough, it felt like the deck was really getting through by the skin of its teeth. And then as I'm doing the replay here, like wasn't quite realizing exactly what we were slogging through, especially in the Tron matchup and the Weather the Storms, as well as the Mirror match and the Dragon's Claw. I still stand by my decision to scoop the Pox matchup. Is it possible we could have won that? Maybe, but if that's not really something on the line, it's not really something I'm going to grind through. There are certain matchups that I just refuse to grind through, and that's kind of one of them with this deck. Kind of like, there's been a few others that I've scooped, like Lantern Control with certain decks I would just scoop. You know, sometimes it's better to just save your mental sanity and equity and kind of do the thing. Deck is very powerful. Stormwing Entity, setting up your draws, in addition to being what it is. As far as the setup of the Phyrexian spells, I'm not quite sure. It's something that would have to be revisited, play the deck more, see what happens. But yeah, I think the Slate Blue Slash is worth it. So let me know what you think down in the comments. If this is something that Prowess should be exploring, or should they just stick to Mono Red. Anyways, this has been John for MTG Nexus.